Hello, everyone, and welcome to UB Live, the location of live photography masterclasses with experts. My name is Medina, and I'm a passionate lover of photography, and also I'm a co-founder of UB Live. Today, we're delighted to be joined online by Jose Truchado, who is known to be combining two of his passions, travel and photography. His photos have been published in many magazines and travel websites. Jose is a firm believer that we don't need to have an expensive camera to make good photos, and that today's mobiles are more than capable of taking amazing shots. Jose has taught over 30,000 online students all around the world, so we are in good hands today. The duration of the class will be recorded and sent to you after the class. And if you have any questions during the class, please do raise your hand or write down your question, and we will have time to answer them at the end of the session. Thanks again for joining us, Jose, and it's over to you.
Thank you, Medina. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Mobile Photography Skills Accelerator, where I'm gonna go through different stages of what my editing process in mobile photography and how I take pictures and how I get these pictures to look like the ones you're seeing at the moment. Most of the pictures that you're going to see in this presentation are all taken on a mobile phone and edited on a mobile phone. Let's go through it. So first, about me, well, Medina already did an introduction. I'm passionate about photography. I'm passionate about training people, and I'm passionate about traveling. These are three of my biggest passions. I had my first camera when I was 6, but I've worked in the travel industry for more than 20 years. So obviously, I've combined my two passions, travel and photography, a lot. I've sold pictures to magazines and prints, and I've managed to make an income out of photography. And some of the photos that are earning me money today were taken with my cell phone, and not even the latest cell phone, because I've been taking pictures with my cell phone for quite some time. You can reach me in my Instagram is Joe True, or my TikTok Joe True _photography. So for me, photography is about creativity, and it's about engaging with the right side of your brain, which is supposed to be the side of your brain that has to do with being creative. And whenever you're being creative, you're stimulating your brain and making it function even better. So taking pictures is not, you're going to learn a few rules here on how you should take pictures, but actually photography, same as art, has no rules. Rules are to be broken. The rules that I'm going to teach you are actually for you to learn them and for you to be able to compose pictures maybe in a more pleasing way to the eye. But once you know the rules, that's when you can start breaking them and create your own version of these rules. So taking pictures is about fun and about engaging your creativity and your right side of the brain. For me, it's also they're also about holding on to memories and capturing moments in life that I want to remember afterwards. So obviously, same as with a memory, that we kind of start forgetting about the bad things of situations. With pictures, we want to make them look as good as possible. And we're lucky that we live in a time where photography is mainly digital, and that means that photographs, they don't dwindle, they don't get ruined with time. Before, it was with cameras and paper, and the paper would fade away and the colors would fade away. With the photography, with a cell phone photography, we are going to retain these pictures forever. So all you need for this class is your phone, and you don't even need to have a certain phone. You don't need to have an iPhone. You don't need to have a Samsung or the latest model. You just need to have a phone that has a camera. Obviously, if it doesn't have a camera, it won't work. But that's all I'm going to ask you to need. Obviously, there's some accessories that you can also have for helping you take better pictures with your phone. But the rules and the things that I'm going to teach you in this workshop are valid for every single phone that has a camera. Obviously, the other ingredient that we need is your eye and your imagination. The photos are as good as you want them to be. So if you're in this workshop, obviously you want to learn how to take better pictures and how you're curious about how you can make your pictures look better. And that's a really good start for that. The rest is your phone and your imagination. So there's 3 sections that I'm going to cover in this workshop. The first one is how to compose and how to take pictures, a few techniques and rules that will allow you to make a better composition of those memories, of those images that you want to take with your phone's camera. The second and third sections of this presentation are going to be about editing your photos. So taking those pictures that you've taken with your phone and enhance them and treat them and edit them in a way that you will achieve a certain result that only you know what you're looking for. So the two apps that we're going to use, they're both free. The first one is Adobe Lightroom for mobile. Adobe Lightroom has a paid version and a free version. All the sections of the tool that we're going to use today are of the free version of Adobe Lightroom. So you can just go ahead and install it, and it's a very, very powerful tool. You're going to see it afterwards, but this is always my first step when editing a picture on my phone. And then my second step would be Snapseed. Snapseed is a completely free tool, and it's really, really powerful. There's a lot of things that we can do with both tools. Obviously, we don't really have time to go in depth with these tools. So at the end of the session, you're going to learn how to start editing your pictures with this tool. But my advice is that you go and practice with the pictures that you already have or the pictures that you take, and start using the tools that you learn here, the sections of the tools that you learn here, and then be curious and start using things that maybe we haven't covered in this session. So what do you need when taking pictures with your phone? Well, the first one I already mentioned, you need a smartphone with a camera, that's for sure. You need Adobe Lightroom app for this workshop. You need Snapseed, and there's a couple of accessories that will help you take better pictures, but they're optional. One is a tripod, and I'm not talking about one of these big tripods that photographers have. I do have a DSLR camera, a bigger camera, and I always go around with my tripod. But I also have one that is actually a selfie stick, and it has legs like this, and then it holds the phone. So I don't know if you guys can see me in the camera. I hope you can. But with this, it will allow me to take pictures in a more stable way when the conditions are that you require the phone to be really, really steady or a certain height, or even if you want to take a selfie, a full body selfie, because you don't want to take all the selfies just with your hand. And the second accessory that you may want is a light that will help you light your subjects. You can have, there's like ring lights for your phone, like this one I'm showing, that you can clip in your phone, but really any light, because actually lighting of your subject, of the things that how the light hits the things you want to take pictures of, are pivotal for taking a good picture. If the lighting is not right, then your picture will look less professional. They will have areas that you cannot edit or work on, and it'll be really difficult to create an appealing picture. And you will see examples of these in some of the future slides. So this was the introduction. Let's start by taking pictures. What do we do with the phone once we have the camera? Well, the first thing that I recommend is actually not using your phone's camera app, but using Adobe Lightroom. Adobe Lightroom, the app that I just told you, has a camera app that you can use. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because in Adobe Lightroom, you can access it here, like I said, in the corner, there's an icon, and you can access the camera. And when you access the camera, this camera has really powerful tools that many phones won't have. And depending on your phone, this tool will have certain tools or not. But one of the main things that is really, really important is the format of the picture that you're going to take with your phone. When you take a picture with your phone, unless it's a it's a more expensive phone. They're usually shot in JPG format, which is a very standard format. But the problem with that format is that it compresses the pictures and you lose a little bit of information. So when you edit a picture that is in JPG format, then you're actually taking information away from the picture, and the quality won't be as good. Whereas if you take a picture with Adobe Lightroom, and then you choose here in the camera, you choose the DNG format. If you tap on the app here, you will be able to choose between JPG and DNG. If you choose the DNG format, then you will be able to edit the picture without losing information, because DNG is a non-destructive format. JPG is a destructive format where you lose information because you're compressing the picture. DNG is not. So what happens is when you edit the photo in Adobe Lightroom, Adobe Lightroom is writing all the information of that edit in a separate file without touching the picture. And that way is not removing any information. I also recommend that you choose, there's a section that you choose which will allow you to compose the pictures better. And you will see afterwards, you access through the settings menu and you enable the grid and the level. This will allow you, because I don't know if it happens to you guys, but for me, even with the camera, I feel like I have one arm longer than the other one, because most of my pictures are always crooked if I don't look at the level, if I don't have the level. So even with the phone, I'm always struggling to make a picture straight. With a level, it will allow you, it will have something in the screen that will allow you to level the picture so you can ensure that it's straight. And the grid will create lines in the screen that we'll talk about them later, that will allow you to compose the picture much better. So these are the basic settings that you should set in the Adobe Lightroom camera app. But if you don't want to use this app, then you can always use your phone's app and then import the picture to Adobe Lightroom. But this is my recommendation. When I take pictures with my phone, I always use Adobe Lightroom's camera app. So one thing that I think most people don't realize, that when we're taking a picture, what's really, really important is to think about what you want to do with that picture. We usually take pictures because we're in a situation or in a place we like, and we want to take a picture of a monument or of people. And so is that objective to keep a memory? Is the objective to actually have a photograph that later you can print and frame it at home? Or you actually want to sell this picture to a magazine, or you want to use it for Instagram? There's many, many possibilities. So think about it. Have a think about how do you want to, what the picture that you're about to take, what do you want to use it for? So for example, when I took these 3 pictures, I was in Canary Islands, and I like palm trees. And I thought about actually taking pictures of palm trees to create prints. So obviously my framing of the picture and everything that I had in mind when taking the picture had to do with the objective of creating a print. And I knew that I wanted to use certain colors, but I knew that mostly I wanted to take silhouettes of palm trees rather than the palm tree itself. So that actually changed the way I took that picture, or those pictures. And there really are endless possibilities of what you can do with your photos. And you can, like I said in the beginning, you can even make money with them. You don't really need to have a DSLR camera to start making money with photos. You can make pictures for Instagram. So if you have a popular Instagram account, you can get sponsored. You can, obviously, like I said, you can take pictures for memories. For prints, you can sell prints, stock photography, art, make books, merchandise, etc. There's all kinds of possibilities that you can do from mugs. This is a picture that I took of an area that near where I live. It was a sunset, and I thought it was a very beautiful purple sunset that we have a lot here in London. I'm based in London, by the way. And this is examples of different merchandise that you can actually create with your photos. And all these photos are taken with a cell phone. You can even have a shower curtain with that and sell it. if you're curious about where I did this mockups, this is Redbubble. In Redbubble, you can go and actually upload your photos and create merchandise like this and then sell it. So it's a very interesting option for people that are starting with photography and they're just taking pictures with their cell phone. Like I said, it's all about your imagination, your eye, and what you want to do with your picture. So next time you take a picture, have that in mind. Do you want to make a print? Do you want to have it just a memory Instagram, or actually you would like to start creating a shop online and create merchandise with a picture? So this is the first rule for photography. The first thing that every photographer learns, I think, is the rule of thirds. And the rule of thirds is a very simple way. The brain, when we're looking at things and we're learning, the brain is always looking for shortcuts and is looking for simplicity, because this is the way that our brain has of learning new things and of judging things. If we had to look at everything that we have and store everything in our brain, then otherwise our brain would get overblown. So it's always looking for shortcuts. And the rule of thirds helps the brain actually assess a picture much quicker. So there's a tendency that actually pictures that respect the rule of thirds will be more pleasing to the eye. And this is an example of a picture that I took here in London of Canary Wharf. And you can see how I use the rule of thirds. The rule of thirds means that you're dividing the picture into 9 different sections. So it's 2 horizontal lines and 2 vertical lines cutting themselves at equally distant. And if you place objects along these lines or in the intersections of these lines, this is where the eye actually goes. When we first look at a picture, this is the first places where the eye fixes its attention. So when you use the rule of thirds, your picture will be better organized and more pleasing to the eye. So like I said before, your phone will have it, and if not, the Adobe Lightroom camera app has a way of enabling the rule of thirds in the screen of the phone. So you don't have to think about these lines. You will see them on your screen, and they will help you take a picture. This is the menu, how it looks in Adobe Lightroom camera app. The rule of thirds is not the only rule of composition in photography. There's the halves, there's the golden, but this is the most basic one and the one that actually will help you the most for taking pictures that look professional. So, and like I said in the beginning, every rule is to be broken. So once you know the rule of thirds, then you can actually break the rule of thirds and use it in a different way. I'm showing here the rule of thirds as 4 lines cutting themselves in equal distances, but actually this rule of thirds, there's different ways you can distance the lines in order to adapt to the type of scenery that you're taking photos of. Then light. Light is the second most important thing when taking a picture. And why light is so important? Because light can take a picture from looking really bad, like the one you're seeing of me at the moment, to something that looks a lot better. And these 2 pictures were taken within seconds of each other, but I just moved myself around the room where I was to capture the best light possible. And this light will have actually an impact in how capable your camera is taking, or is how sharp your picture looks. Because the better the light is, the easier it will be for your camera to take a sharp picture. But also taking pictures with bad light will create really strange shadows around your subject. If you're taking a picture, a selfie, you can end up with a selfie that is not very flattering, like the one on the left, or you can end up with a picture that is not giving justice the object that you're taking the picture of. So my recommendation is to move around the subject or the room or the whatever you're taking the picture of. If it's a building, move around the building until you find the right light for the picture you want to take. And you will only see it when you do it with your camera. You will see it when you're moving your camera around the subject. You will see how the light improves or works in the detriment of the subject. And talking about the light, when is the best time to take pictures? Actually, the best time to take pictures is what is called the golden hour. And the golden hour is called like that because it's actually the first hours of the morning when the sun is rising in the horizon, and the last hours of the day when the sun is setting. So there are a couple of hours before the sun sets in the horizon. The reason why is that at, at that time of the day, the light actually hits everything in a 45-degree angle. So the sun is in a 45 or lower angle in the horizon, and that will create really interesting shadows. It will create really interesting colors, and it will be very flattering for any object that you want to take a picture of. Like for example, here a picture of a friend's dog in at this time of the day. It makes everything golden, and this is why it's called the golden hour. After the golden hour, there's a thing called the blue hour, and the blue hour, well, after or before, the blue hour is right before the sun rises or right after the sun sets, and it creates a completely different scenario. It moves the warmth, what is called the warmth of this color, the temperature of the colors. It moves it to colder colors, but you can actually take really good pictures at that time. The worst time to take a photo with your phone is at midday. So when the sun is up, you can, and I'm going to show you here. These are two pictures that I took in the same place, but actually with sometimes different. The first picture, the sun was really high in the sky, and that creates the strange shadows that I was mentioning before. This effect in people is called raccoon eyes because it creates these dark circles around your eyes where you don't really see the eyes. And actually, when you're taking a portrait of a person, the eyes are the most important thing. So if you, unless you don't have any other option, if you're going to take pictures with your phone, try to choose either the first part of the day or the last part of the day, and then use the rest of the day to enjoy yourself if you're traveling. As you can see here, there's a big difference in how my face is lit in the two times of the day. And then the third, another thing that is really is a good tip. Now I'm going to start telling you tips on how to take better pictures. And this is about leading lines. Remember before I talk about the rule of thirds, and there's a way that where I apply the rule of thirds in this picture, but actually what's most important in this picture for me is the leading lines, is how I use the lines of the objects in my picture to lead the eye towards a certain subject. And we see, especially in cities, we see a lot of these leading straight lines, lines that you can use for taking your pictures. Actually, if we go back to the rule of thirds photo that I did before, you can see that leading lines here are not straight. They're actually the curved shadows of the fence that are on the floor. They're kind of taking your eye towards the buildings in the horizon. So whenever you see leading lines, you will be able to use them to your advantage, use them to take a better picture because they will be really helpful. They will be really pleasing to the eye. Like I said, your brain is always looking for shortcuts. So having leading lines will help your brain understand what you want to say with your picture, what's the message that you want to give with your photo. Next tip, simplify your photos. Many times we just want to take pictures of everything, and we have a disadvantage with photography is that our eyes, or are an advantage in terms of a person. Our eyes are a very complicated machine, and there's no camera that can replicate exactly how your eye works. So even though you're able to see things in a 3D way and with certain colors and certain depth, when you when you take a photo of a, for example, of a landscape, things can end up being really flat or really busy. And if your scenery is really busy, then your the eye of the person that is looking at the picture is not going to be able to concentrate on anything. It's going to be messy. So try to look for simplicity in your photos, and try to isolate subjects. So think about the message that you want to give in your photo, and try to remove any elements that are distracting. And the first step that you can do that in post-production, but the first step where you should do it is when taking the picture, making sure that you choose one subject, or maybe two, maximum three, and then concentrate on those subjects and choose a photo that will enable the viewer to see what you want to communicate through that photo. So the brain, like I said before, tends to look for simplicity, and this is an example of two pictures. Remember the case before, the example that I said before, that I was looking for pictures of palm trees. These are two pictures that I took of actually the same palm trees. One was when I was underneath the palm trees, and the other one is I was far away. In general, the picture that works the best here is the picture on the left, because of its simplicity. So while I was trying to take pictures, and I was right there in the palm trees, and I was looking for different angles, and I couldn't see, and I was like looking upwards and thought, oh, the way the leaves of the palm trees is quite intricate and is interesting. It was actually very hard to make this picture work. I had to do a lot of heavy editing. Both of them have heavy editing, but for the picture in the right, it was quite hard because it was very busy. So your eye doesn't really focus on anything. I had to blur the picture a little bit so you can concentrate a bit more and simplify the colors. But the more simple your photo is, the better it will be, the more easier it will be for the person that is looking at your pictures to like your photo. Then there's one thing that is called negative space. Negative space is actually, it comes from a space that is empty around your subject. But it doesn't necessarily need to be empty. It just needs to be flat. It needs to be that it doesn't distract. Remember when I talk about simplicity, for example, in this example that I showed you before, the negative space would be the sky around the palm trees. It's just empty space, and this way you can isolate the element of this picture. And this is very useful, especially for people that have Instagram accounts and want them to be popular, is to create photos with negative space, because the way that Instagram works, it will be really nice in the grid. When you see the grid of pictures, to see the negative space around them, it will allow the viewer, even when the picture is small, to see to isolate the subject. Whereas if the picture is busier, then it will be very difficult for the viewer to actually figure out what the picture is about. So it's a way of isolating one subject in a picture, surrounding it by space that is occupied by something that is flat or something that is empty. So flat, like a sky with clouds, or in this case is a cement wall or the pavement. But it doesn't need to be empty. So in this case, this picture of the dog is a very blur, monotone background that doesn't distract your eye from the subject. This is also called negative space. So negative space can be achieved in post-production, like I did with this picture of the dog, or this picture that you see here of the flowers. You see here, I desaturated the leaves, the green of the leaves, and reduce also the contrast of those leaves in order to isolate the flowers, because my subject here was the flowers, the purple of the flowers, the color of the flowers. So I wanted the background to be as flat as possible in order to create that negative space. It's not empty space, but it's space that doesn't distract the eye. Another good technique to isolate your subjects and also look for that simplicity is to frame your subjects. So looking for different frames that are natural or man-made will make your subject stand out more. This is a very busy street in Seville, in Spain. There's always cars passing by, and my object here was the Giralda, which is a which is a very famous monument in Spain. But the cars passing by and all the bars in the streets, there's a lot of bars. This is pre-coronavirus, obviously. That would be distracting from actually the main subject. So I moved around and I saw that there's a lot of orange trees and small bushes in the street that allowed me to frame this picture. So that way, your eye immediately goes to the tower. And same thing here with the woman. I used the arches of this picture was taken in Morocco. And here I use both leading lines and the arches and the building frames to frame my subject, the woman in red that was right there at the door. She didn't know I was taking the picture. I was lucky enough that she was standing right in the middle of it, but I had to wait a lot of time. But if I had not waited and if I had not looked for these natural frames, then the picture would be less interesting. So framing your picture has a very similar effect than using negative space. Then another tip that is really, really important, it will actually make your pictures stand out even more, is to create depth. And to create depth, I recommend to have at least 3 different layers of depth in your picture. In this one, we have, I would say, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 with the sky in the background layers. But I think with 3 is enough. If we have too many layers, then it becomes quite distracting. But if you create depth, it will give the viewer a sense of being there in the picture rather than just being a flat image. And we can achieve that depth in post-production as well, sometimes, by, for example, blurring the background, the foreground. And this is one of the things that we're gonna learn how to do in today's workshop. But it's quite important, like I said, when you are gonna take a picture, to think about that depth. So if you have something in the foreground, for example, like I did here with the trees and the bushes, or like I did, in the other picture with the arch. So here in the arch, we have the arch that is in the foreground, and the arch with the woman in the middle, and then we have the background, the patio that was in that palace. So there's 3 levels of depth that we're achieving here. That will give a more interesting look to your picture. So if you see something, if you're going to take a picture of something, try to include whatever is in the foreground, so you create that sense of depth. And then another favorite of mine is to look for details. Sometimes we're really mesmerized or awed by the scenery that is in front of us. And in this case, I was at a lavender fields here in the UK, and it was beautiful because it had the leading lines, the beautiful colors of the lavender. It had the depth of the trees in the background and the mountains in the background. So I have the 3 layers of depth here. But actually, some of my favorite pictures of this day have nothing to do. I mean, I really like this picture, but when you look at details, you're able to take pictures like this. And nature specifically, especially, is very, very interesting when you go down to the details. You're able to see a lot more of the environment that you're surrounded by. And so, because one good thing about having a phone is that you probably, if you use online storage, that you have unlimited space to take pictures. So make sure that just experiment. And even if the scenery is breathtaking, make sure that you go down to the earth level and start taking pictures of details. Or if you're in a monument, sometimes the certain details of the monument, if you go up close, you will end up with a much better picture of of what you're taking the picture of. So, for example, if you're, I remember I don't have the example here, but if you're in Florence, I was in Florence and I was taking a picture of Michelangelo's David, and I took the similar picture that everybody takes of the full statue. But if you do an up close, you can't get really close. But if you do a close picture of his hand, then you can see the gesture and the veins in the hand, and it ended up being a picture that I used for a long time as my cell phone background. So details are really important. Don't ever overlook them. When you take pictures, make sure that to get that make that extra effort of going down to the ground and take pictures of details of things. What happens when you take portraits, pictures of people? You can take pictures of people in many ways, but one thing that there's one rule that you almost always need to ensure is that the eyes of the person, they're sharp. So the focus of the camera on your phone, it focuses on the eyes of the person. And the way you usually do this is by tapping in the screen. When you see the person, tap on the area where the person's eyes are, because that needs to be the sharpest part of your picture. If the eyes are blurry, then the picture will look less professional. And this is unless you're trying to achieve a different meaning with the picture. Sometimes you want to give emphasis to something else, like the hands while you're talking. So if the hands are closer to the camera, then the eyes don't need to be sharp. But if you're taking a portrait, and a portrait usually is a person's face or a pet's face or an animal's, make sure that the eyes of the person or the animal, they're very sharp. You can, if you don't achieve that sharpness that you want, you can fix it a little bit when editing the picture in Adobe Lightroom and Snapseed, but it's better to actually do it first on your phone and ensure that you do it on your phone first. Like I said before, rules are meant to be broken. So I'm telling you now, eyes should be sharp, but sometimes you want to experiment and you want to take pictures of a different gesture of your body or the person's body. And that will also be interesting. But if they're facing the camera and they're looking at the camera, try to get the eyes of the person as sharp as possible. And then finally, how to take selfies. Well, selfies are really, really difficult, and especially for people that are self-conscious. And I am self-conscious, even though I'm showing a lot of pictures of myself here. I'm not really great at taking pictures of myself. And because I teach these classes, that I had to force myself to take pictures. So you kind of need to learn a few techniques. Everybody can take a good picture of themselves. It's just a matter of finding the right light, like I did in the example before, making sure that you move around with the camera and find the pose or the area of the room where the light hits you the best and is the most flattering. But one thing is that I recommend is, like I said in the beginning, whenever possible, use a tripod, because the tripod will allow you to move away from the camera. Otherwise, the camera is really close. And when the cameras are very close, they deform a bit your face. So they tend to actually make your face look a little bit like a balloon. So the farther away your camera is, the better. And if you have a tripod, or if you don't have a tripod, a place where you can put your phone. Actually, for this picture, I didn't have a tripod. So I put my phone I had a backpack and I put it leaning on my backpack, and then I used the timer. So that's important, to try to get away from the phone as much as possible. Move around and search for the best lights. And also try creating dynamism in the picture with movement. So if you're very self-conscious that you don't want to look at the camera, actually a picture of you moving somewhere or walking or reaching out to something or reading a book, doing these actions will actually create a better selfie, and then maybe a more interesting selfie than if you were looking at the camera. This is what I just said. Don't look at the camera. And then about your body. Your body, we tend to think about, oh, what do I do with my hands, and what do I do with my face, and what do I do with my legs? How do I put them? One rule of thumb for taking better selfies is actually to create angular shapes in your body. So what do I mean with that? I mean this. You can see how my knees, one knee is up, one knee is down, and this creates these triangles. And then my arm is in a certain position that it creates an angular shape with my shoulder and my wrist and my legs. This will make your shape more stylized, and you will be able to take a better selfie. So you don't need to be hiding things of your body. If you're self-conscious, you don't need to do that. You just need to create the right shape for you. And so try experimenting. This the day I took this picture was a year ago, and I took, if not 100 pictures, close to 100 pictures, and of which I only selected a few. And I tried different poses. I tried getting closer to the camera, sitting down, standing up, and actually this is one of the ones I like the most. And it's because I'm creating those angular, more interesting shapes in my body. Another thing is that if you're self-conscious about your face, one technique that it will create a better jawline, is to put your tongue in the ceiling of your mouth. Is to put the tongue in the ceiling of your mouth, and that will actually lift up your neck, this part of your face, and will create a more interesting jawline. So that's another technique. And again, in this picture, aside from using the angles to shape my body, I use the rule of thirds. And you can see here how my eye intersects, my left eye or right eye, like intersects one of the lines. Then one of my knees intersects the lower line, and everything is balanced in the picture. I had to cut a bit my foot, but it's better to cut my foot than actually have an unbalanced picture. And again, I've told you a few tips here and rules that will help you create pictures that, in theory, they will be more pleasing to the eye. But rules are actually meant to be broken. So whenever you're going to take a photo, think about how you can take that photo differently, and what else can you do when you take that photo, and maybe you will be able to create pictures that are more interesting or have a different message. So this is me experimenting with an egg. I was making an omelette or something, and I thought, oh, maybe, I'll have the chicken escaping the egg and counting the days for the chicken. This is with my friend in a swimming pool, and to show how the water was splashing around. All these pictures were taken with a cell phone. This is my dog jumping to drink water from a fountain. So some of these pictures don't follow the rule of thirds. They don't follow the leading lines. They don't follow proportions. But actually, they're more interesting because they have a message. So break the rules and experiment, and I'm sure you will end up with really interesting pictures. So up to here, this is the part where we talk about how to take pictures. We're going to move on to how to edit the pictures. But I wanted to maybe ask has anybody had any questions so far?
Yes, please. If you have any questions, just raise your hand currently, or you can type them in the chat. So there is a chat. I didn't see any questions for so far, but feel free to ask. We're here to answer your questions. And if there is nobody who has any questions, we can go ahead and start our second part.
Yep.
And then please type your questions so at the end, because we will have in 15 minutes to answer them. So chat is open for everybody.
Okay. So nobody has any questions so far. Should I move on to the next section then? As I said before, we're going to learn 3 things in this workshop. One was tips and techniques on how to take better pictures. I hope you got some pointers in what I just covered. Like I said, if I have any questions, type them in the chat and I'll answer at the end of the session. The second part is what I'm gonna start now is about editing your pictures and how to take, these are the two of the pictures that I'm gonna work with, how to take them the way you take the picture and create something that allegedly is gonna be more interesting, much better when editing. The first program that we're gonna cover is Lightroom, Adobe Lightroom, and the second program that I'm gonna cover is Snapseed. I'm gonna do one picture with each program, and then at the end, I'm gonna go through the entire process, my editing process, where I take one picture, start editing it in Lightroom, and finish the edit in Snapseed, because there are certain things that Snapseed does that Lightroom doesn't, and the other way around. So for Adobe Lightroom, the first thing that we need to do is to import the pictures. If we haven't taken the picture with Adobe Lightroom, we need to import them. And in order to import them, you type on the icon that has a picture in the plus, and then it will go through your phone's pictures directory, depending on whether you have an iPhone or Android. They will be classified in different ways, and then you choose the pictures that you want to import. So in this case, I move to this folder, and then I'm gonna import these 3 pictures. Then you will have an album with different pictures. You choose the picture that you want to take, and this is a picture that I took in Stockholm a year ago. The first section that I always go is to crop and rotate. And this section will allow you to straighten the pictures. I mentioned that I have one arm that is longer than the other one, and my pictures are always crooked. So I want to make this picture straight, and also make sure that I use the proportions that I need. So if I want to publish this picture on Instagram, the proportions that I will use is 4:5. The next menu that I go is to light, and then in light, what I usually go to is the curve. The curve, I always create. Sorry, I'm going to try to pause the video because it's going a bit fast. I think I need to exit the presentation. I'll move it here because it's not allowing me to pause the video. So when you go to light, let's see. Okay, the next section that I go is the light. Within light, there's the curve, the tone curve, and the tone curve will allow you to retouch the light or the tone of the picture, dividing it in 3 different areas. One is the bright tone, so the brightest parts of the picture. These are here on the right-hand side of the picture. The other section is the medium tones, and is this part of the curve. And you will see how I'm retouching them and the effects that you get when you do it. And the third one is the low tones, and is the left-hand side of the picture. So what I usually do is I create 3 dots where the lines intersect, where the curve intersects the lines. So one in the right-hand side here, one in the middle, and one in the left-hand side. You will see it right now how I do it. So here you see I've created the 3 dots, and then I move these dots up and down to make that area of the picture, not the area, the tones of the picture. So the brighter tones, brighter or darker, or the medium tones, darker or brighter. I usually end up with a curve that looks like an S, maybe a softer S, or a more harsh S, because usually what you want to create is certain mood and depth. So you want to create more contrast in the picture than what your phone, than the picture that your phone takes. Sorry, every time than the phone takes. So as you can see, if I'm moving the left dot, if I move it down, it makes dark areas darker. The one in the middle will make the mid-tones darker or brighter. Then I retouch the highlights. Your phone usually, when you take pictures, is on auto, so it will choose whatever the phone thinks is the best settings for the camera, without really thinking of what effect do you want to take. In this case, it was a very cloudy day. It was a very breathtaking sunset. You don't really see it here. It was more colorful than what you see in the picture. And the clouds were very dramatic. And this is what I want to achieve with this picture, is that, oh, sorry, is that drama. So what I want to do is make sure that the highlights are not as bright and the shadows are not as dark. So, sorry, so I move the highlights. In this screen, you have different levers: the exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, whites. The main ones that I move when I edit is highlights and shadows. I make the highlights lighter. So as you can see here, if you remember a little bit before, the right hand side of the picture, you couldn't see the clouds. By making the highlights, by moving the lever to the left, now you can see the clouds because I'm making the highlights darker. And then if you move the shadows, sorry, it's not moving. Is it? Yeah, the next one is the shadows. If you move it to the right, then you can see now underneath that building that you can see what's underneath because it's not so dark anymore. So with the shadows, you're making the shadows brighter. Now I go to the color section of the tool, and here's where I'm retouching the colors. The good thing about Lightroom, and that Snapseed cannot do, is that in Lightroom you can retouch the colors individually. So, sorry, it's jumping from one slide to another when I. So if you go to mix, the mix section of the colors, you will be able to access each color individually. And then you have 3 sections in each one, which is the hue. Hue is the tonality of the color within the rainbow, the saturation, and the luminance. And here you can see how I'm making oranges more red or more green. And you can see in the building how it's changing the color. So when I change the hue, I actually want these oranges to be warmer. So I want them to be a bit more red, and I'm moving it to the red. Then the saturation. This is what we want to do. If you look in Instagram, photographers that are popular, they usually only use a very small palette of colors, and then they desaturate all the other colors. And this is what I'm trying to achieve here. I want to make this sunset more red and breathtaking, and I'm using a more teal and red palette. So I'm moving the warmer colors, which are the red, orange, and yellow, towards the warmer side of the hue. I'm saturating some and desaturating others. I'm desaturating greens, for example, because greens don't add to this picture. It's not a landscape where I want to show greens. And then the blues, I'm moving them to teal, which has a higher contrast with the orange. Is the quite opposite of the orange. So it creates a more interesting picture. Then you can see how my retouching the purples and the and the lilacs, and the reason why is that, remember when I mentioned before the golden hour, and then I said after the golden hour comes the blue hour, and I want this picture to look more like the blue hour than the golden hour. So I'm trying to make the skies more blue and purple and bring that richness in the clouds by retouching the colors individually. The luminance, what the luminance does is that it gives a certain color light or makes it darker. So whenever I'm increasing the luminance of the color, it desaturates it a little bit and makes it brighter. If I move the luminance to the left, then it will saturate the color and make it darker. Then what I retouch is the temperature. The temperature is actually what I mentioned before, is the time of is the warmth of the picture. And because in this picture, like I said, I want it to be in the blue hour, not in the golden hour. I want it to be colder. So I'm going to move the temperature of the picture towards the colder side. And the colder side, you can see it because it's more blue in the lever, in the line where you move where you move it. If I wanted to make this picture like a very warm sunset, I would move the lever to the left. I need to find the position where I was. And then you have the tint, and the tint will either tint your picture with purples or with greens. So if there's too much green in your picture, you can always move it towards the purple. Then what I always retouch is the vibrance. And the saturation. The saturation will saturate all the colors. The vibrance will only saturate the colors that are desaturated, and will make the picture more colorful without actually looking fake. So you can see that before and after, I'm already achieving a big change. The next thing that I'm doing is a color grading. On the color grading, you can retouch the highlights, the shadows, or the midtones. And you can create an overlay of one color over each of these. So if, in this case, I want the highlights to be warmer. The brightest part of the picture, I want them to be a bit warmer because the building was golden, and I have retouched the picture to make it colder, but because of the blue hour. So I want the building to still be gold. And here, this is actually the tool that Instagrammers use the most, because by color grading your picture with this, you can create an uniformity of colors within the picture. And then once I retouch everything, then I go to the next section, which is called effects. And here you can retouch the sharpness of your picture. So you have texture, clarity, and dehaze, and vignette. Texture will sharpen small details. So for example, like I said before, if the eyes of a person in a portrait are not as sharp as you want them to be, with the texture, you can increase that sharpness and make them sharper. And then with clarity, you increase the sharpness of the overall details of the picture. So it's like texture, but a little bit bigger. And then with dehaze, you use it usually for dehazing. So if your picture is a bit foggy, you create a more dramatic, more contrasted picture with dehazing. The vignette, what it creates an effect where it darkens the borders of the image in a round shape. And then you can actually create that transition between the darker borders by moving the lever, the feather lever. Then you have the sharpening menu, where you can sharpen, again, the overall part of the picture. And then when you take pictures at night, usually, or in this time of the day, usually you create a thing that is called noise. And the noise, you might have seen it before in some of your photographs, is that when you take a picture in the dark, it creates, the camera doesn't really have the capability to understand what's in the picture. So they had to invent and make up parts of the picture. And they do it by looking at what's around, and whenever the camera doesn't have the information, it will create a dot of that color. And then you will see it as little dots in your picture. And this especially happens when you're taking pictures with low light. You have here in Lightroom a way of removing those dots and making that picture look better, look more sharp, and better quality with the noise reduction. The problem is that when you work with the noise reduction, if you increase it too much, then it will create a watercolor effect where everything is blurred. And all that sharpness that you have achieved in the previous menu, then you won't be able to achieve it. Oh. And here you will see it when I magnify the picture, you will see it in the sky. You see now the noise, and now how it reduces the noise that I now you can see the noise and how the effect of noise reduction has in the clouds in the sky. It makes them softer. So this is the before and after, how the picture has transformed with the retouches. I usually go back to some of the retouches I've done to increase the contrast, to finalize all the effects that I wanna have. But this is, I know it's complicated and I've gone through it really fast, but my advice is that you're gonna have access to this, so you can slow down that video. And my advice is for you to import to Lightroom one of your pictures and go through the steps that I've gone through. Crop, to adjust the crop, then the light and the curves, to adjust how the light hits the photo and to try to bring details in the photo that are not there. Then go to the color mix and experiment with colors. My recommendation is don't go overboard with the saturation, because then you will actually ruin the picture if you put so much saturation. So choose 2 or 3 colors that you want the picture to have, and then work with those, with the saturation of those, and try to desaturate all the other colors. And then work with effects and detail to make your picture sharper, to make your picture more professional. I know it's complicated and it's really difficult to show this in such a short time, but I hope at least I spark your curiosity for you to start experimenting with Adobe Lightroom, because it will make your pictures look a lot better. The next app that I'm gonna show you guys is Snapseed, and again I'm gonna try to sorry, I'm gonna move the video so I can control it better to the side. Snapseed is a picture where I'm going to use a selfie, and the reason why I'm going to use a selfie is because Snapseed is excellent for retouching selfies. It has a lot of automatic tools that will smooth your skin and do the beauty face without using a beauty face filter. You can do a beauty face filter here, but in a much softer way, so it doesn't look so evident. So without much further ado, with Snapseed, you open a picture. It's really easy. You don't need to import them. You just select a picture that you want to use. In this case, I want to use this selfie that I took. I've already worked with this selfie in Lightroom, so these are the final retouches that I want to do. The first thing that you have is you have certain filters, but I don't use. What I go is to the effects, the first tool, and is to move a thing that is called the ambience. And the ambience works a little bit like vibrance, where it saturates colors that are not saturated. Here I'm using, remember when I said it's going a bit fast in this section, this is the part that I told you that it has for portraits. So how to retouch a face or a pet. And this software will detect your face, and it will allow you to choose whether you want to smooth your skin, the brightness of your face, so it will increase the brightness of your face, and the eye clarity, so it will increase the sharpness of your eyes, so that your eyes are more prominent in the picture. Here you can see how I'm like moving the skin smoothing all the way, and my skin looks very waxy. It looks like I'm 15 years younger than I'm actually am. But this is just an exaggeration to show you what you can do with your photo. The eye clarity will make the white of my eyes more white and the black of my eyes more black, so there's more contrast in my eyes. Then another tool that I always use here in Snapseed is the selective tool. This is probably the most powerful tool that you're going to use. And if any of the tools that I'm teaching you here, I want you to remember this one, because with this one, you can select different areas of the picture to retouch without affecting the rest. And this is something that you cannot do in Lightroom. So the way it works is that when you choose the selective tool, you have underneath here, you see a plus sign. With that plus sign, you can create dots in the picture. And with those dots, you can adjust the brightness, the contrast, the saturation, and one thing that is called structure. And structure is similar to sharpness. So of that area, that is usually a round area that you can adjust, and I'm going to show you how to adjust it. You can retouch all these values. And so here I'm retouching the brightness, and you see when pinching, when you put two fingers in the screen and you pinch, you're able to increase. Oh, sorry. You will be able to increase or decrease the size of the. Sorry, I'm not able to control the video as well as I hoped. You will be able to increase or decrease the area of influence. Whatever you see here that is red is where the adjustments will happen. So here I'm going to increase the brightness, the saturation, the structure, because I feel like that area of my face is too dark. So I want that area of my face a bit brighter and a bit sharper. So I'm creating that, I'm increasing the structure. Then I feel like the color of my shirt is too prominent. So I'm darkening it a bit. Also the background to create, remember when I said layers of depth, the background is too bright, it's too distracting. So I'm making it selectively a bit darker now in the ceiling and underneath my arm. I'm making all these areas darker. So the focus is more on my face. Then the next tool that I'm gonna choose is, if you guys have seen pictures, portraits, especially portraits taken with professional cameras, you usually get an effect that is called bokeh. That effect is when you see the subject, the face of the person, and then the background is blurred. So it's not distracting. You can focus directly on the face. And although some phones can achieve that, but most phones cannot do that. And in order to achieve that with the editing, is with this tool. You create, it's called lens blur. And what it does is that it creates that effect. You place the center of the lens somewhere, wherever you want it to not be affected. And then it will create three areas. One area, which is the center of the lens that will not be affected. Then the outer area where the blur will happen. And then the area in between, which will be a transition between the blur and the non-blur. And this this will emulate that effect of the lens effect of a professional camera. So here I'm gonna continue with the blur. I'm blurring the background and I'm changing the shape of that lens. It has always to be an oval or round shape to adjust to the shape of my body in the picture. That way I'm trying to achieve that only the background is blurred. So again, as with any retouch, the retouches should be subtle. They should be step by step, very small step. If you go all the way, then the picture will look fake. If that's the effect that you want to choose, for example, in this picture, I did want to achieve a more waxy type of look, then you can go all the way and a more saturated look and very dramatic and moody. But if that's not your aim, then try to make the adjustments little by little. And then one thing again that Snapseed has is that whenever you apply a filter or whenever you apply a tool to a photo, then you can go to the undo menu, which is up at the top here, and then undo only part of the filter that you have applied. So let's say here that I have blurred areas, for example, my finger here, which is supposed to be closer to the camera than my face, it shouldn't be blurred, right? But that tool only allowed me to actually apply a round effect, so I couldn't avoid it. If I want to adjust that, I go to the undo menu, which is here at the top, and then select this. Go to View, Edits, and then go to the tool that I use, and then select, see if I can go a bit, yeah. And then select, okay, here, you can either erase the effect that you've done. You can change again the different options that you had for the effect, or then you can paint the effect over the picture. And that way you can apply that effect only to the areas where you want to apply it to. And I'm going to do it in a very rough way here for the sake of time. But when you do it, if I select the mask, the red means everywhere where the effect is being applied to. I created a red mask on top to see where the effect is being applied. And then you will see here in the center of the options, you have one arrow to go down and one arrow to go up. That means to whether you want to increase the amount of effect that you want to apply or decrease it. At the moment it's 0. So when you do 0, you will be erasing the effect from the areas of the picture that you want. So remember before that I said my fingers in my hand were too blurry, and because the effect had been applied. So I don't want the effect to happen in my face, in my shirt, in my arm, or in my hand. And so by painting this effect, I'm erasing actually here this effect, then I can, you see how everything else has been blurred. But my hand now is as sharp as it was in the original picture. My face is as sharp as it was in the original picture. Everything else is as sharp. And you can do this with any effect that you want. The next effect is the vignette. The vignette in Snapseed is a lot more powerful than the one in Lightroom. And the reason why I prefer to use it here is because in Lightroom, you cannot move the vignette around. The center of the vignette will always be the center of the picture. Whereas in Snapseed, you can actually move the center of the vignette to any area of the picture that you want. And this will create a light effect. So let's say, for example, that I want to increase the darkness of this side of the picture and the top of the picture to emulate the sun coming from underneath or a light source coming from underneath. Then I will place the vignette, the center of the vignette here. But you can see as I move it around the picture that it changes the light in the picture. At the moment, I want to place it here because I want to make actually the darker areas of my face lighter, but the other parts of the picture darker. Then another picture that another tool that you might want to use in Snapseed. If you've noticed some of the most famous Instagrammers of travel photography, of portrait, of landscape photography, you will see that some areas of the picture are really soft, very, very soft, but some other areas of the picture are quite sharp. So that way they're able to remove things that they don't want in the pictures, but the picture still looks well focused, well shot. So Snapseed has this option called glow. And what glow does is that it softens the picture. And by doing that, it blurs the picture a little bit. So it softens, and you can increase this by the glow, and it increases the saturation of the picture. All these are options that you can increase or decrease, even though it has five settings that you can use straight ahead, but then you can actually adjust each of them. In my case, for example, I would want the glow to only happen in certain parts of the picture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the glow and then I can go to what I did, exactly what I did in the before, is go to the undo section and paint only the areas where I want to apply. Then there's another important tool in Snapseed, and it's very useful. It's not useful in this picture, and I'm going to show it as an example. But sometimes when you take pictures of buildings or things, your phone is not straight, is not in an angle that takes the best picture. So some buildings may look inclined or in a perspective that is not the correct one. This tool will allow you to actually fix the perspective of your picture. And you're going to see how I do it here. Like I said, this picture doesn't need it, but when you go to, it's called perspective. When you go to perspective, you have different options to tilt your picture up and down, left or right, to rotate your picture, to scale it, or actually do it in a free way. And when you do it in a free way, you will see it now. I'm going to choose the free way. So you can see how it changes. Oops, sorry. Can I? When you do it in a free way, it creates areas that you can see they're black. Oh, again, this is you can see they're black. And the beauty of this tool is that actually it will fill those areas in a smart way. So it will try to figure out whatever was there, and it will fill up those gaps. So if your picture, if you need to rotate your picture, for example, or you need to scale it or decrease it a little bit, and there are areas where actually were not part of the picture, this tool will automatically create information in that area. Then there's another tool called healing. And the healing, what it's going to allow you to do is to fix parts of your picture that you don't want them to be there. In this case, I'm going to show it as an example. I'm going to erase the branding in my shirts. So the way you do it is that with your finger, you use it as an eraser, and it will create. It will try to create in a smart way to fill up those areas. You will see it now in action. So you see, it tried to do it in a smart way, but because it was too rough, then it doesn't do it perfectly. But if I zoom in, then I'm making smaller changes that actually are closer to what the original will look like. And bear in mind that because this is like a magnified part of the picture, then you see it more than it was. But you can undo any changes that you do, you can undo, and then you can start doing it again. It takes a lot of practice to actually do this. But sometimes when you have a painting on a wall or you have a stain of something, you can erase these stains easily with this with the healing tool. You can see here how the effect is more or less what I wanted to achieve. You can erase molds in the face of the person. You can erase. You need to be very careful how to do it. But if you do it, if you magnify the picture, then you can actually really heal and erase things in a way that is very unnoticeable. Finally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in order to finish this picture. I'm going to go back to the selective tool, and I'm going to just adjust the colors and the lights of an area of the picture, just to have the final effect that I want. Then the tool that I'm using now, it went too fast. the tool that I'm using now is the brush, and the brush will allow you to actually change different parts of the picture with a brush, with a painting. It will allow you to fix the exposure. So if you want areas of your picture to be brighter, it will allow you to fix the temperature. So if you want areas of your picture to be warmer, it will allow you to fix areas of your well, like I said, temperature. And let me go back to see if I can. I'm mindful of the time, so I'm trying to go fast, and then my so yeah, the exposure, the temperature, and the saturation. So if you want certain, so for example, let's say that I want to highlight my watch here that is orange, I would use a paintbrush, and I will just adjust the saturation of the watch. This works kind of like the selective tool, but it's a little bit more selective. And with this, I'm mindful of the time. I'm gonna go. I'm not gonna be able. I'm gonna finish the presentation. I'm not gonna be able. I was gonna do a retouch from start to finish, but now you can see how I go from Adobe Lightroom. When I take a picture, I take it to Adobe Lightroom, retouch the colors individually, and then I move it to Snapseed to actually do the more finer retouches and edits of a picture. And with that, you can achieve really beautiful pictures that you can use in anywhere you want. You want Instagram or all the things that I mentioned in one of the first slides. So do we have time for a question, if there's any questions?
Yeah, we got quite a few questions, and
Okay.
let me start with the first one. So, okay, somebody asked, "How is it, Gulia? How is the Adobe Light on the phone?" So I think she missed the first part when you were telling that it's a free app. But yeah, please go ahead.
Sorry, what is that? Sorry, I couldn't.
So she was asking if it's a free app. So if the
yeah, Adobe Lightroom, and Snapseed. Those are the two free apps that I use.
So there is a question that you mentioned. You took about 100 photos to get a good selfie. Should we always aim to get lots of pictures and then pick the best one, or it's possible that we take the perfect shot from the first try?
That takes practice. It's one thing that I would recommend is first think about the type of selfie that you want to take. So what is the situation? You wanna be reading a book rather than just pointing your phone at your face and taking the picture. Then the second one is to look for the light. So move the phone around and move your face around until you find the best light. Look, I'm moving the light here, and you can see how the light hits my face. I don't know if you see my screen. It hits in many different ways, and you will look different.
We currently don't see us. We see only the presentation.
Little, yeah. Okay, so if you move around, then you will see the best light that flatters. That was actually the example of this slide. In this slide, it was exactly the same place, almost the same time, within seconds. But the only thing that I did was to move around until I found the most flattering light to take a selfie. So if you move around and then you think about the type of selfie that you want to take, then you probably will get a better selfie from the get-go. And use the tips that I told you, that I mentioned in the selfies slide as well.
Okay, so there is one more question. It's asking, hi, Jose, you spoke earlier about selling your photos as prints. Which sites would you recommend to use for these? And are there any tips to have successful prints?
Yeah, yes, I have a couple of tips that you can. So one thing is I will go to shops where they sell prints and see what other people are selling, what's in fashion. So when I took these pictures of the palm trees that I've sold on my shop, I saw that a lot of people were looking for pictures of leaves, of plants, of things like that. and some people were looking for pictures of were buying prints of pictures in pastel colors, in colors that were in the reds and the greens and the pastel. So this is why I took those pictures and I made those prints. Um, the so if you want to sell your prints professionally, you can do it in that place that I said, Redbubble. That's one place, or you can do it in Etsy. It's a little bit, it takes a bit longer. You can always, there's lots of places online. There's the print space where they will take your pictures and they will help you create prints. It really depends on your phone, on the capabilities of your phone. The prints will be bigger or smaller, depending on how capable your phone is of taking good size pictures. Um, I would say up to most phones would be good. Pictures taken with most phones would be good to about A3. A3 is about, I would say, two. I don't remember the size in inches, but it's quite big. It's pretty big. So yeah, well, the first thing I would do is to do research online and see what other people are buying. So go to places like Etsy or places where they say prints, just Google prints, and see what people are buying, and then try to recreate those prints. You would be so some of the prints that I've sold the most were taken in a park near my house, and there were close-ups of leaves of plants. So you could actually even do it, create a print at your own home with a plant and make it interesting. As long as you retouch and edit the picture in a way that looks that looks printable, if I can use that word, that looks like somebody would want to frame that picture. And I would say, in general, people tend to like to hang pictures with less colors. So try to desaturate and only have one or two colors prominent.
Okay, so there is one more question. Is asking like, hi Jose, could you explain the S curve a little bit more, and how do you choose the points and shape of the curve?
Yes. So the S curve. Let me go back to that slide because it is quite important. So there's let's see if I can stop it. Find the S curve. I think there. Okay. Yes. So my get to play the thing that I always do with the S curve, the dots at the very left and very right will always be there, so you don't need to create those. Then the next dots that I unfortunately the picture is very bright here, but the dots that I create are in the intersection of the curve with the guides. So you see the curve intersects here. It's a little bit on the left, but that was my finger not being able to do it properly. But I will create three dots. So one here, this is for the darkest side of the darkest tones of the picture. One in the middle, so in the very middle of the curve. And this is for the midtones. And then one in the right-hand side where they intersect the guides here. So is where the curve intersects. And then what I do is I move them once I created the three dots. So first thing you do, you create the three dots, because if you start moving without creating them, then you will have changes that you don't want. So you create these three dots, and then I move them up and down until I find the light, the tone, the brightness of the tone that I want. In this case, I was trying to get more contrast in the picture, so I made the darker tones a bit darker. So I moved the dots on the left-hand side to the lower, to the bottom, not to the bottom, but a bit lower. And then I moved the one in the brighter side. I moved it up to make things a bit brighter. So that creates a more depth in the picture. One trick here is that if for portraits, people usually lift the dot at the very left, the end of the curve, they lift them a little bit to make the shadows not so dark, and it creates that faded look in portraits that we usually see a lot. So I don't know if that answers your question, but yes. Turn curve
Okay.
is a bit hard to master, but you need to import a picture, go to the turn curve, and then create these 3 dots and start playing with them until you find the result that you want.
Okay, I think we have one more question. Just give me a second. So I'm not completely understanding the question, but maybe you say, what does the hue in Lightroom?
Yes, the hue in Lightroom. We went really fast with it. So whenever you go to the color mix, you will have hue, saturation, and luminance. The hue is like moving the color, so changing the color slightly towards its closest color in the rainbow. So think about the rainbow, and you think about the orange. So the orange is close to the red and to the yellow, right? The orange is the mix of the red and the yellow. The orange stands in the middle. If I move the hue to the left, it will be more reddish orange. If I move the hue to the right, it will be a more yellowish orange. And this happens with every color. So the blue will move towards the green or towards the purple. And the green will move towards the yellow or towards the blue. And that way you can change the color slightly. So what I do with this is that because I want to have a few colors, I don't want to have too many colors in my pictures. So for example, all the reds, oranges, and yellows, I try to move them towards a similar tone, so they all look like they're the same. So the red, I move it towards the orange. The orange, I move it. I don't touch it very much. And then the yellow, I move it towards the orange. So the red would move it to the right, and the yellow would move it to the left. And that would create that the red, yellows, and oranges would be quite uniform in terms of hue, in terms of color. They will look very similar, and it will create a more simple picture. Remember, I said your eye is looking for shortcuts, and simpler things are more pleasing to the eye. So that's how you achieve it.
Okay, I think that there is a last question. Actually, it's coming back to the same question about the S-curve. So that helps, but why the S-curve rather than using the contrast option?
So the contrast option would increase the contrast in everything. And sometimes you don't want to increase the contrast in everything. With the S-curve, you can choose which tones in the picture you want to increase or decrease that contrast.
Okay. Okay, I think that's all. There is no more questions, and we answered. If there is anything to answer, please send them. Meanwhile, we just want to mention that the class is recorded, and actually we're gonna send it to you by mail, but please fill the survey. So the survey is actually showing in the chat, and here's the survey. Thank you very much, Jose. Thanks for your time.
My pleasure.
And we really enjoyed your class. And thank you very much.
If you have any questions, just reach out to me in my social media. I can always answer your questions in social media.
And thank you everybody who joined, and we're looking forward to see you again. There is upcoming class about yoga photography, and it's open for registration, and more classes about GoPro and drones are coming soon. Thanks again, everybody, and have a very nice evening or day. It depends where you're located, and the recorded version will be ready very soon. Please feel time to find the survey. We will really appreciate it. All the best, Jose, and all the best, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Have a great evening.
If anybody has any questions, reach out to me.
Thanks again. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Have a good day to everyone.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.